you know, in restaurants, typically you'll hear some crashes. People drop dishes, there'll be a lot of noise. But there was a very loud noise, and it seemed to have, you could hear some pops. You could just hear pop, pop, pop. And then a wave of people was running away from the front door and getting down, and everyone in the restaurant was just getting down immediately. And so you knew there was probably a strong chance that there was a shooter, either outside the building or inside the building. And so once everything quieted down, I peeked up just to see if the person was in the building and where they were in the building, and they weren't. So friends of mine and I, and people who worked there, were moving out of the building in different directions to go to the parking lot to see if maybe somebody needed aid or we could maybe catch a bus. And once we got out there, a vehicle came onto the parking lot, and it came in very, very quickly. It was an SUV. And so at first I wasn't certain if that was the shooter or what the situation was, so I was kind of looking for cover. But it stopped, and the gentleman got out and went, and I don't know if it's the back of the car or the back seat, but he went somewhere in the vehicle to get a weapon, and he was going to help. So once I saw that was happening, and I think somebody said there was someone else out there at that point, I spotted the shooter walking along the sidewalk in the trees, and I was pointing and saying, he's there, he's there, he's there. And so they were moving toward him, and he kind of stopped walking and was, I don't know, kind of oddly pacing almost, and just looking around. And so they're screaming, put it down, please put it down, please put it down. I don't know, all I remember is the ear protection and the eye protection. I mean, those are the things that stand out. Yeah, just like if you went to a range, it was that kind of thing.
He had a gun in his hand?
And he had a gun in his hand at that moment.
And they're yelling, put it down?
They're yelling, put it down, and I was pointing and, you know, just, I knew he couldn't hear because he had ear protection on, but he looked in my direction, and I was just pointing, put it down, put it down, put it down. And I was a row of cars away, and he must have made a move because shots began being fired. I got down behind the car, and I don't know exactly how many shots were fired, but there were a few. And when I got up, he was down on the ground, and they were there, and a police car was coming in at that time. So I made my way over there very quickly because I wanted the police officer to know that these three guys are good guys. These are good guys. These are good guys. These weren't the bad guys. And so there was a lot of chaos. The police officer showing up had no idea. They went to the ground, and the officer, you know, he handled the situation. He handled the situation incredibly well. And then, I mean, the response time for the rest of the police department, they were there. I mean, they were there almost instantaneously. And from that point on, they just began questioning people, and we went downtown and kind of told them the same thing I'm telling you right now.
Did you see anybody shot then inside Louie? You didn't?
I didn't. The only person who I actually saw myself who was injured was somebody who they had taken out on a stretcher, and she was alert and awake, and she was in some distress and probably some shock as well. But I mean, I don't know exactly who was shot, how they were shot.
What about the gunman when he went down? I mean, he was killed then instantly.
You know what?
Scene,
you know, I don't know exactly, you know, when he expired, but we were just there talking to the police officer and trying to tell other police officers as they arrived. They're like, these are good guys, these are good guys. So they cuffed him and said, just sit still. We need to figure out what's going on here. And that was about it. We went downtown and we, you know.
Do you know it at all?
It's a basketball game tonight. We're pretty excited about that. Everybody's just kind of having separate conversations. And I was at the far end of the bar away from the front doors. And that's where the shots were fired, from outside of there. But initially it sounded like, I mean, you're in a restaurant, you hear dishes crash all the time, and you always hear that kind of noise. But it was a little bit bigger noise, followed by some pops, and then a wave of people. It was just very odd. It's the only thing I can compare it to is like seeing a wave in a stadium. You see that wall of people? There was a wall of people going to the floor and running around the corner. And so that kind of stopped for half a second, and I peeked up to see if the person's in the building, and it didn't appear that guy was in the building, so we made our way to the parking lot. We saw somebody peeking out the window, so assumed, okay, that's where it's moved to. And we were outside just trying to look and see, okay, where is this person? I realized that this is probably a good guy. I wanted to find where the shooter was. And we picked him up in the trees. He was walking up a sidewalk, and so pointed that out to the guy who had come back. And there was another person there by that time too. But I really didn't take great notice of him because I was focused on this guy. And he was approached and he was asked, he was begged, they're like, please put it down, please put it down, please put it down, please put it down. And as he was looking back and forth between them, he kind of stopped on me for a second, and I was just like, just put it down, just put it down, just put it down. And then he moved and shots were fired, and I got down, and by the time I got back up, he was on the ground.
So did you see him actually getting shot?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't.